calls me from out of the pit.
Why don't we talk about where or if indeed Star Wars as a whole, where did it go wrong? Did it go wrong? Thoughts?
I'm off today, so I'm gonna let you two talk first.
You know, whether or not Star Wars went wrong, it's kind of a tough question because it's weird because, Star Trek fans will say, well, at least we don't only have three movies that we like.
Y'all, yeah, they better be careful because they also have Star Trek Generations, which is an abomination.
Yeah. Well,
Don't get me started on Star Trek.
I mean, I kind of think if it went wrong, it was with the prequels. I just didn't really care for the prequels. They had a lot of cool, world building in them.
Yeah, visually they look.
Yeah, visually and the characters and the settings were all really cool. But I don't know, they were just kind of, I don't know, I'm not even sure what to say. Kind of boring.
Yeah.
Too much emphasis on politics and,
Yeah.
Jar Jar Binks was just the absolute worst.
Mm-hmm.
I thought he looked cool, like before the movie came out, and I saw the toys. I thought he looked like a cool character, but that voice and the cartoonish.
It just goes to it looks good visually. It looks good.
Yeah, I remember, before the movie came out, Toys R Us had you could wait in line and get in there and buy all the toys. Before. I just thought everything looked so cool and bought all these toys, and then it just kind of fell flat. I mean, I enjoyed the movie. I'm not saying it was a terrible movie. It's just after a while, I just haven't had any desire to go back and watch those movies.
Yeah.
Yeah, my boy will watch the third one.
I really think that's all we needed. We needed a longer version of the third one.
Yeah.
They should have spread out number 3 over 3 movies. What we wanted was him becoming Darth Vader. That's what everybody wanted.
Yeah.
And so they could have started with that and then had him do the Jedi Purge and some of what they do in the comic books now. But yeah, it seems like, although I still am, I'm a huge fan of parts of number 2. The beginning with the bounty hunter and the chase in Coruscant, I love that sequence. The rest of the movie, whatever, but that sequence with the mystery and the chasing, I love the Coruscant scenes. That's something I've been waiting for since I was a kid, was to see that planet, and so to get that in that such detail, I thought was cool in number 2.
Yeah. I think they exaggerated the Jedi stuff too much a little bit in those prequels, like having Anakin jumping off just falling and surviving it. I don't know.
He's the chosen.
Yeah.
For me, where it went wrong.
Yeah. Anyway, I mean, the sequels, I know a lot of people absolutely hated them. I kind of liked them, honestly. I liked the first one. When I saw it, I said, this was the return to what Star Wars is supposed to be from the prequels. And yeah, it was kind of a, rehash of the original movie,
Mhm.
in a lot of ways. And the other two, they got kind of progressively worse. But yeah, the thing that I was annoyed by with the sequels is they didn't really, they didn't really have a sense of what the fans wanted to see, and that's having all the original characters back together.
Mhm.
They kind of did like what they always do in the monster mashup movies, like where they have Dracula, the Wolfman, and Frankenstein in the same movie, but they never meet.
Yeah, yes, 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 yes.
Yeah, it's like,
Yeah, yeah.
you know, it would have been great to see Luke, Princess Leia, and Han Solo and Chewbacca all in the Millennium Falcon flying around.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
But they didn't do that.
No.
They had to have Luke get all depressed and run off. And, I mean, I enjoyed the movies though. I mean, I would watch them again if I owned them, but I don't. And anyway, I think um, the other movies that they came out with, like in between the Solo movie and
Rogue One.
Rogue One,
Mhm.
yeah, were pretty good. Um, it was kind of weird having a different actor play
Yeah.
Han Solo.
Mm-hmm.
The guy who played Lando was perfect.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Okay.
I preferred that. Yeah, I preferred that to a DH'd Han Solo.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um,
Pretty much.
But anyway,
But he wasn't the best, but I think Solo gets more hate than it deserves.
Solo's only real problem for me was it ran up against like Black Panther, I think, or something like
Yeah,
that, and it didn't do well. And
Well,
in
and
box
people wanted to
office.
take it out. People were so angry about The Last Jedi, they took it out on Solo.
Yeah,
A lot of
good
people said,
point,
"I'm
too.
not going to see it after what they did to Luke at The Last Jedi."
That's a good point.
Yeah.
For me, Star Wars went wrong with Empire Strikes Back.
You stole my answer.
And here's why. And maybe you can make.
We're actually on the same page.
Yeah, believe it or not, I'm pretty sure our reasonings are the same. My basic thing is with Star Wars is like it was an unintentional success, and when it came to, and that's a ridiculous way to put it, they were scrambling to put something together for Empire,
Yeah.
and they were literally writing stuff as they were making it and
Yes.
changing things.
Yeah.
And that's been the problem with everything since then. Everything. It's why I don't pay attention to lore in Star Wars, like we talked about earlier. We don't off camera. I don't care about lore. I just want a good time,
Right.
and I'll figure the lore out if you put it in the show enough for me to get it. So it's ridiculous to try to hold everything, keep everything straight because it's all this.
Yeah.
And that's my biggest beef with where Star Wars went. I mean, I like the all three movies. New Hope, of course, being the best, because it was just so new and different and shook us.
Yeah.
Shook us. And it's a victim of its own. The franchise is a victim of its own success.
Mhm.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, so you figure let's see, Empire came out in what, 80? So I would have been what, 11?
Yeah, 80, 81. So I was in seventh grade.
Yeah. So for a good 35 years, Empire was my favorite.
Mm-hmm.
But then as more stuff has been released, I too agree the franchise went wrong with Empire.
Mm-hmm.
And the reason I agree with you for the same reasons. The fact that I mean, Lucas gave creative control to other people.
Yeah.
But Roger Ebert, if you go on YouTube, he and Siskel did a re-review of Star Wars when it came out, was re-released in '78 for Christmas, and they were talking about Star Wars as a phenomenon, and Roger Ebert said it's exactly what we want in the terrible '70s. Is we wanted pure escapism, and a good time. And so Star Wars is pure escapism and a good time. It is pulp. It doesn't have to make sense. If you've watched a lot of serials like we do, they don't always make sense, logical.
No.
It doesn't matter. The whole thing is it's a good time.
And it's it's inspired by the pulps,
Yes,
by the serials, which were made in a time when people needed escapism.
Correct. So the mistake I think they made was Empire Strikes Back took a fun escapist movie and made it serious and gravitas, and that forever has, for me, has tainted the whole series. And so I like Empire less now as an adult, as an older adult. I'd much rather go back and watch Star Wars than Empire. And I mean, I think there were some other mistakes they made, which I've made a long list.
This may be a two-part.
Yeah. I mean, The Empire Strikes Back becomes sort of this treatise on good versus evil, and I mean, it takes on a whole. It would be like the French, avant-garde version of Star Wars, and so it goes too deep for me, and it became like Star Trek did. So Star Trek, when Roddenberry came around to do the motion picture, it became bloated on its own importance, and they forgot that it was Wagon Train in Space.
Yes,
so even Roddenberry forgot. He became so bloated with it. And so I think like Star Wars became so bloated with its own importance. And then, of course, everyone, me included, all of us fans made it that way. I mean, it had changed our lives so much that it then became our philosophy, and, everything became like Star Wars. And so I think Empire, it went way beyond just being escapism. Now it had a message. Now it had, meaning.
What is the Heart of Darkness?
Heart of Darkness, And so, and then this is a recent decision or thing I've decided, is in Star Wars, they are Jedi Knights.
Yep.
The term is Jedi Knights over and over again. Jedi Knights, Jedi Knights, Jedi Knights. And, again, to the samurai, because he definitely watched, had the samurai movies, but the word Jedi Knights to me, as a D&D player, things like that, has a whole meaning around it. A knight can be the protector of a society, but doesn't mean that they're a, Zen master hero. They're basically like medieval knights or yeoman archers. Like, the whole thing at the end of the movie, that's the other mistake, is where Obi-Wan tells Luke to let go at the end of Star Wars and to focus. And that's all traditional. Any warrior, a person trying to shoot a bow or an arrow, is going to let go and not focus. You know what I mean? It's way more about being a warrior, and that's what a warrior would do. If you've watched kung fu movies as I have, it's all about that. And so they took that. I think Lawrence Kasdan, the writer of Empire, took that little bit and said, well, let's make the Jedi Zen masters. And they're nonviolent, and and we have no feelings, and so Yoda's preaching all of this nonviolence, but then they pull out their lightsabers and cut each other's limbs off. You can't have the Jedi be Zen Buddhists. And have it make sense for me. If they're Jedi Knights, it makes sense. They can be as good or as bad as society they protect. And that, I think, would have made the prequels make more sense. So where did the Jedi Knights go wrong? Well, I like Filioni in Rebels has an episode where he shows there's different types of Jedi and different philosophies of Jedi. And I wish that had been what the prequels was about. The fact that Yoda and his ilk, they became more corrupt as the society they protected became more corrupt, and the pure Jedi, retreated. And so there's a character called the Bendu in Rebels, and the Bendu, he says he's in the middle, kind of a gray Jedi, and so I'm neither the Jedi and the Sith are both extremes, unlike movie three posits. They're both extremes of the same coin, and I'm going to go off and meditate on the Force and really delve into the Force. So I'm not going to get. They got. In fact, there's a Kanan gets angry at him in Star Wars Rebels because he won't help out. But he's like, I am totally divorced from conflict, from fighting. And so I think it would have been interesting that if they had kept it Jedi Knights throughout the whole trilogy. That to me says a bunch of different stuff. It makes more sense that that the Jedi over time sacrificed their beliefs to protect the society they were meant to protect. So they're forced to kill each other and harm each other and things that they wouldn't have done had they been Zen masters out in the middle of nowhere. And so kind of keeping that, just because a kung fu master can focus and block everything out and not feel anything and be totally focused and have his art, doesn't mean he can't harm and kill you. And so to me, the message that Yoda does, the whole Zen Buddhist thing, just doesn't fly. And that's where I think Empire falls apart now. And that's my biggest, and I think it's cursed it through the whole thing. That it's made it. I mean, it makes it ridiculous that, in the beginning, George Lucas had very, very clear good and evil. It was very black and white. Empire muddles it. And so now it makes it harder for me to accept that Darth Vader's redeemed, that Darth Vader becomes a Force ghost at the end of Return of the Jedi. I just don't buy that at all. Never did. Never did that one good act mitigated all the atrocities that he. But anyway, that's a whole other. But that's. But if they're Jedi Knights, then that kind of makes sense. Anakin was he kind of do like the Knights of the Round Table. They all had their flaws. They were flawed. It wasn't a perfect society, and then the society falls because they trade in their ideals for power and things like that. So, but anyway, that's my view. I have more, but so that's the main part, I think, where it goes awry.
Well, and those are all valid points as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah. I mean, I think Filione's tried. He's tried to show that there are lots and lots of different types of Jedi. And so I like that idea. I like that idea that there's conflict. And it kind of, sort of even makes, in some ways, The Last Jedi work, but not. The fact that Luke decides a different path for the Jedi. And so, but no, it doesn't redeem it in the end for me, that movie.
All right.
Yeah.
Have you got anything else?
Well, I don't know. I mean, what you say is interesting, but
wrong. But in essence, wrong. Yes.
I mean, I don't know. I think Empire Strikes Back was a great movie.
Not saying that it's not. It's my favorite movie for 30 years.
Exactly.
I mean, if I were to say that Star Wars went wrong in the original trilogy, it would have been Return of the Jedi, that I would say, because it started getting too cutesy, too muppety.
Yeah.
Like the aliens look more fake, more like puppets. But it doesn't bother me because it introduced Jabba the Hutt, which is one of the greatest characters in Star Wars.
Yeah.
And
I like teddy bears, so you're still wrong with that.
No, I think the worst offender is the Gamorrean guards. They look terrible.
They really do look
really bad, muppety.
Yeah. Or the blue elephant guy.
Yeah.
I mean, he's a cool character, but it's just if the puppets looked a little bit more realistic, I think. Jabba, I think, looks better as a puppet than he does in the later CG. Interpretations. He just looks.
Took 3 people to operate that.
This giant thing that can barely move. It just looks more interesting than and for some reason they changed color when they did him in CG.
Yeah, what's up with that?
I don't know. Like he turned kind of yellow and green where before he was just brown.
No, and my criticism of Empire is, had it just been the first 3 movies, I never would have thought of this. For
Mhm.
30 years, 35 years, Empire was my favorite, loved it,
Mhm.
had no issues with the philosophy. It's all the stuff that's come after that's
Mhm.
made me go, there's all this conflict, just how they present Jedi's changes every 2 seconds.
Yeah.
And so to me, it's like the contradiction started in that movie.
Mhm.
So that for me, that's where. But if it weren't for everything else since then,
For all that time after the original trilogy, I kind of had the attitude that everything else in Star Wars mythology was just kind of bullshit.
yeah,
You know, like
Okay.
all the books and stuff.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
It
Yeah,
was
yeah.
not. It wasn't like actually Star Wars.
Yeah.
So I didn't really pay attention to it. I mean,
Yeah.
yeah, some of it was cool, but yeah, there was that whole kind of thing before the prequels came out. Do you remember that where they just had like the toy Star Wars toys?
hmm
There was no movie or anything. It was just like they were merchandising nothing.
I
yeah,
have some
yeah,
of that.
Yeah.
yeah.
Uh,
Yeah.
and for some reason, it was like it got really big. I can't remember the name of that character. There was like a special like a character that it was centered on.
I can't remember. Oh, it wasn't the video game, right? The character from the video game.
Maybe I don't know. I can't remember.
Was that the Shadows of the Empire?
Yeah.
Shadows of the Empire.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was a video game. Yeah, that was not Exar Kun. I can't remember his name. I never played the video games except for the Star Wars Lego game.
Dash was it Dash Randar?
Yeah, Dash Rendar. Yeah, he was kind of like
Yeah.
a Han Solo ripoff.
Yeah.
Yeah, had a Millennium Falcon that looked like turned on its side.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But anyway, uh, yeah. So I always kind of felt everything else was just fake Star Wars,
Mhm.
and so I didn't really. Yeah, I just felt like the other people were expanding on it, and it wasn't really
Mhm.
relevant to the movies.
Yeah, it's like I love the comic, Marvel comic,
Uh,
but yeah, it was like, well, none of this is really going to mean anything
Mhm.
until like the next movie comes out and they put the adaptation of it in the
Mhm.
series, and then they go back to square where they left off,
Mhm.
before that. But
Right.
yeah, I'm the same way.
Um. Yeah.
Yeah, it's also I think part of it is it had such an impact on us
Mhm.
hmm
that nothing would have equaled it.
Mm.
Yeah.
There's no way to capture that. I mean, Mandalorian comes close.
Mhm.
Mandalorian captures that lightning in a bottle, I think,
Mhm.
better than everything else.
Yeah. I.
Um, and so, it took what, 30, 40 years for them to figure it out again. And so, yeah,
Yeah.
there's a lot in between. Although my brothers read the books, and I guess there's a lot of good books. The Legends series had a lot of good stuff. But I did not, beyond the three Han Solo
Yeah,
books from
yeah.
the 80s, I guess it was Han Solo at
70s.
Star's End. Yeah, 70s.
Yeah.
Han Solo at Star's End. I didn't really read the books.
Yeah.
Uh, except for I did read the Revenge of the Sith novel because I guess it did. It made the movie much better to read the novel. But yeah, no, this was more just a new thought. This is new, like in the past few years. I've kind of like, I think it's because of The Last Jedi. So what my whole issue with the Jedi, just the fact that, I wish it had stayed Jedi Knights, Samurai,
Yeah.
not gotten into the whole philosophical thing. I just wish it had stayed,
Yeah.
They were the protectors of the Republic
Mhm.
and they fell, to get into the whole mystic mumbo jumbo, I think was a mistake. Although I do love, although one of the greatest scenes is when Luke goes into the cave,
Yeah.
his failure in the cave.
Yeah.
No, like I said, for most of my life, Empire was my favorite.
Yeah.
And so, I had my Empire Strikes Back blanket till I was in my 40s. So,
Yeah, that's true. I've seen it.
Yes, it's still around.
Okay, well, on that note, I think we'll wrap this
Yeah.
one up. Because otherwise we could just keep going all night because
Yeah.
we're Star Wars nerds.
Yeah.
So yeah, that was our top 5 favorite Star Wars shows and where Star Wars went wrong. What are your 5 favorite shows? Are we wrong? If we're wrong, let us know down below. I read all the comments.
Are some of us wrong?
All right. On that, I'm Paul.
I'm wrong. I'm Mark.
And I'm
And this has been the return of the son of the show.
Prepare yourself for Star Wars Shadows of the Empire. The evil Empire has struck back with a vengeance, and a new villain, the crime lord Shizor, schemes to replace Darth Vader as the Emperor's second-in-command. With Han Solo held frozen in carbonite by bounty hunter Boba Fett, it's the rebellion's darkest hour. Now, join Jedi warrior Luke Skywalker, hard-charging Chewbacca, and go undercover with heroic pilot Dash Rendar and his booming Outrider. But can Han Solo be freed and Shizor be stopped? Star Wars Shadows of the Empire. Look for the authentic figures and vehicles from Kenner.